going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go. I can't begin to say thank you to everyone who has continued to support this platform, supporting the guests who we have on the show, and more importantly, feeling the messages that each guest shares through their stories and how they've been able to get to the point where they are currently. I love being at the focal point of helping people and providing education and inspiration. So today I have a wonderful guest, and this guest, I met her in San Francisco during the San Francisco Writers Conference. We shared a panel together, and I was completely blown away with what she represented. And so I'm not going to give you all a super long bio because I want to just hop right in, but I'll just give you quick highlights is that our guest, she is an accomplished traditional published author. She has a great book series, which I want her to kind of give you all some details on. And true, nice kindred story. She was kind enough to provide me with one of her books via mail that she refuses to let me pay for, but that's a different discussion for my wife. And I'm just so humbled by it. So without further ado, I present to you the wonderful Miss Andrea Stewart. Thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, of course. Yeah, so before I even press forward, I want to touch bases on that I'm so grateful. I say all that stuff jokingly about you refuse to let me pay for it, but I'm so humbled and I'm really appreciative that you did that. I know it's not as much as about like financial things as much as it is the gesture. So thank you so much for doing that. My wife is going to love that book. I'm just waiting for it.
I hope so.
Yes, yes indeed.
I
So
hope she enjoys it.
Oh, I'm sure she will. I'm sure she will. And before I even take a deep dive into the books and your work, I definitely want to point out about like where we met, and how we met, and the panel that we were on together. And so that we were in the Teen Summit, and to me, helping out the youth is what I am really driven to do. Just through my art form, you had so much treasure to provide them. And I'm wondering, is this something that generally comes natural to you? Just you seem to be a natural leader in the sense of being able to help out people, but especially those who are wanting to get their foot in the door. How does that all mesh with you?
Well, that's very kind of you to say.
Hmm.
So that's funny because I would not say that I am a natural leader. I was the kid in the back of the classroom who nobody talked to, basically.
Yeah.
So I kind of just absorbed myself in books. But I spent a lot of time trying to get published and working on my craft. So I kind of understand what it takes and the determination it takes to actually reach that kind of goal. I
Hmm.
also coach writers regularly on the side, which I find so helpful actually for my own craft because I feel like having to articulate the why of doing things, like, so I'm not just doing it like instinctually. I have to actually break down like why I'm doing it and explain it to somebody else. I find it so helpful for my own work as well. So I think that kind of background enables me to convey like what I'm trying to convey as far as like what people need to do in order to
Hmm.
improve their writing and to get published.
Okay. So speaking of getting published, the traditional publishing route, I've met many on both sides of being independently published and being track published. For you, what was the distinguishing factor that made you decide I want to go the trap publishing route?
For me, it's I'm far too scatterbrained to effectively indie publish. I have friends who do it very successfully, and I'm very happy for them. And I think that, I don't think that there should be this kind of divide where people I know some people like look down on it, like
Hmm.
like it's lesser than, and I feel like that's so wrong.
Yeah.
I know many indie published authors who are like very accomplished at their craft. It's just I don't have the ability to do that kind of switching back and forth without
Hmm.
forgetting a lot of things. So for me, it's very helpful to have a team on the publisher side that takes care of a lot of that kind of
Oh, for
thing. So
sure.
yeah, I mean, it's not to say that I don't still have to worry about marketing, social media, etc. However, it does cut down on the amount of things that I need to keep
Yeah.
track of.
Hmm.
uh, I'm just not very good at that. It's not a natural skill of mine.
No, and not that it even needs to be too, but like I think there's strength in knowing what your strengths are and knowing that, ooh, if I go that route, which I'm sure I could be successful at, but if I go that route, there is a lot more I would have to do that I just don't have the time for. Just even
I do
myself.
not think I would be successful at that route.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just don't.
Maybe the writing piece possibly.
Yeah.
But to kind of get back on to get back to that with the whole publishing route. So for many people, right, they go through the whole querying letter process and they go get the literary agent and boom, and then the rest is history. Sometimes the process I've learned can take several years. But for you, how did you acquire a literary agent by just, hey, I know you, you know me, people who know people, and they connected you, or was it the old school, old fashioned route, query letter, and moved your
It
way up
was
the
it was
ladder?
kind of a mix of both. So I queried multiple books over multiple years. When I started trying to get published, I mean, the earliest record I can find on my email is sending out queries in 2007. I know I did earlier because I remember I did send out some paper queries. so
Mm,
so I don't know. I don't have an exact date on that, but it took me until 2013 to actually get an agent. So that was 6 years.
hmm.
But I did talk to one of my friends who said that her agent was looking for epic fantasy. So I was like, oh, like I'll query her. So I cold queried her, and ended up getting her as an agent. And it was, it's funny because it takes so long and it's so difficult at that stage. You feel like, well, this is it. I've got it made.
Hmm.
The next parts are going to be easy. But it is like climbing a mountain every time.
Yeah.
So you've reached that mountain, but oh, look, there's another one that you've got to climb. So
Hmm.
it took me another 6 years after, and another, and more books
Hmm.
after getting an agent to actually get a book deal. So I did go out on sub with two other books that died on submission.
Oh boy.
So
I think there's a certain tenacity that you have to have about yourself too in the grit of achieving a goal with any profession or any obstacle that people want to climb. But in particular with this business in the book publishing world, it is a beast. Every time, every book, every manuscript, it's a beast to even and I can't speak from experience on the track publishing side, but just as a writer, being able to say, okay, I have this fresh idea. Let me put this on paper and let's turn it into something magical. There's like, it's just nerve wracking, but it's exciting all at the same time. And now you want to hurry and finish the story, but you don't want to rush the story. For you, are you are you more of a person who plots their stories, or do you know what, I have an idea and let's run with it? How does that go for you?
oh, I'm definitely a plotter. However, I would not say I'm a very skilled one.
Oh gosh.
So I'll have very elaborate plotting documents, but I'll often find that once I actually sit down and start writing, that a lot of it needs to change. So, yeah, it's one of those things where I say that I think slow and write fast. So it takes me a
Yeah.
while to kind of untangle everything. And then once I
Hmm.
do, I can write a book in a very short amount of time. But that untangling is very difficult. I find it particularly difficult to do that with epic fantasy because there are
Hmm.
multiple threads that I'm trying to handle. I'm trying to interweave those threads. I'm trying to make sure that they are having that rising and falling action at the same
Hmm.
points, that those character arcs are resolving, that they are having influence on one another. And it is a puzzle. It is a
Yeah.
puzzle. And it's only this last book that I handed in that I did not have my editor come back to me and say that I had chronological problems in there. Because by the time I'm like moving everything around
Hmm.
to fit story wise, I often end up having something get mixed up chronologically. So
Uh,
yeah, it is like an extremely complicated puzzle. Now I've written books as well that are not multiple perspective, not multiple storylines, and I'll tell you it is a lot easier in a lot of ways. It's faster.
yeah.
But yeah, I plan poorly, but eventually I do get there.
Oh,
And that's the
yes.
thing that I have to keep in mind is that I will get there eventually.
No, for sure. It's certainly it's a marathon. It's definitely not a sprint. And one of the things that I really love that you talked about was the how you go and you organize your stories quite in an elaborate way, but when it comes down to it, it's like, ooh, darn it, I did all of this planning just to not go with this idea. It's because you never know what's going to come out with when you have all of these ideas just floating around, and then once you put that pen to paper or that those fingers to the keyboard, and you just go. Now you can write a book. You mentioned in a short period of time after, of course, you've gone through that process. But I'm curious to know, excuse me, that sort of grind mentality does not just you can't teach that well, you can teach it, but it takes a certain type of person to be able to move in that direction consistently. So, was this something that you learned in your youth, or did you develop this skill over time? How did that come about for you?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like I say that I'm very bad at quitting, which is true, which is not always a good thing, mind you.
Hmm.
But it did work to my advantage here. I do think that I learned a lot throughout writing all of these books about how to break a project down into smaller pieces and how to
Hmm.
focus on that that's just right in front of you. I mean, when you say it's like a marathon, I compare it a lot to that because when I'm writing a book, I'm like, well, just like 100 more words, just 100 more words.
Hmm.
And then I just keep lying to myself. And then I'm like, well, I could do another
Hmm.
100 words. And also like finding the power of incremental rewards.
Hmm.
So if I'm finding it difficult, if it's like a real slog, I'll have like some chocolate chips,
Oh
and then
yeah.
I'll just like eat one like every 100 words, and it's like a little reward. Or
Hmm.
I'll reward myself when I hit like 10,000 words,
Yeah.
20,000 words, and it's just that knowing how to just look at like the next step in front of you, because the thing is like when you look at the book as a whole it can very quickly become overwhelming because you are
Hmm.
tackling this huge project and there's so many like multiple steps along the way. I always tell people like you look at the books on the shelves, you can't expect what you're writing in the beginning to look like that because that's
Right.
been through multiple revisions on the author's end. It's been through structural edits, sometimes more than once, copy edits, proofing. So
Hmm.
so if you look at all that, the whole entire process that it takes to make a book, like a completed book, it
Hmm.
can be too intimidating and it can
Yeah.
really kind of make you stop before you've even begun.
So true.
So, yeah, so learning how to break that down and learning how to just focus on what was in front of me, I think really helped me improve my writing process.
You know, it's interesting thinking about what you're talking about, where you look at a size of a book and can easily be deterred. And that's exactly that. You're speaking my language, and by that I mean you were speaking like directly to me, even though you were speaking indirectly. And I'm with you. See, I'm not a novelist. My wife loves to read novels. I don't know to this day how someone can grab a novel and read it in like a day. Like my brain would fry after like 20 pages, and that's assuming that I stuck to this full 20 pages, even if the story is enticing. So, but I'm with you. It can be intimidating, and so like for me, even as a writer, I'm like, I love comic books, I love the graphic novels, but I don't know if I should do that. And so early in my writing career, so I'm like, I'll write children's books. That's really quick, easy, gets my footing in the door. But like in time, you read and go from 10 pages to 20 pages to 30 pages, and now you're starting to catch a flow. And now you can tackle those much bigger books. But some people are much in that mindset of if they see that
thick book and they have ideas of wanting to write a book and they see that, it can deter them altogether. And how did you get to that point? I know you mentioned you like it's hard for you to quit. How did you get to that point of even deciding I want to? I'm going to do this. I'm going to commit. I want to be a writer.
I kind of always wanted to be like my my cousins and I like we actually answered a series of questions like about one another like when we were kids like oh
Hmm.
what do you think this person's gonna grow up to be and things like that and we opened it
Yeah,
10 years later and mine was like they all thought I was going to be an author. So
that's awesome.
it
That's
was something that,
awesome.
I mean, it was something that I had been doing since I was a little kid. Like,
Hmm.
my mom still has this story that I dictated to her when I was 3. I was like, write
Yeah.
this down, mom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's something that I've been doing forever. I did have like a kind of inflection point when I was in 5th grade and we did a creative writing assignment.
Hmm.
And my teacher really encouraged me and said it was really good and said I should keep writing. So getting to send her, like mail her my first book was really amazing because I feel
Hmm.
like teachers can be so important in this process too,
Yes.
about like steering you and seeing what you're good at. And then I just kept writing. Like I wrote my first manuscript when I was in middle school, and then I started and stopped several in high school. And then I finished the first one that I and like went to try to get published like right after college.
Hmm.
So it was something that I always knew that I wanted to do. At the same
Hmm.
time, it's tough because it is a difficult business. It's a
Wow.
difficult business to make a living in. I did not study writing in college because I had this kind of thing with my parents, right, where I had to get a degree in something practical. They're
Right.
both immigrants,
Yeah.
and you come to America because you want your kids to have opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So trying to be a writer was not really the opportunity that they were looking for me,
Hmm.
especially because there's that whole thing about like starving artist, right? It is very difficult to make a living as a writer. So I went to school for something practical. I studied economics and I got a job right out of college. And I basically just worked an office job while I was writing my books at that
Hmm.
time. So I could make a living and then do what I wanted. So it was like lunch breaks, I would write, after work, I would write, on weekends, I would write. And that was how I got to my first book that I had published was
Hmm.
writing in those spaces in between. I wrote a lot of that book on my phone, actually,
Hmm.
just in those spare moments because you'd be surprised. Like if you're waiting in line somewhere, if you're the passenger in a car, like you can dash off like 200 words and it all adds up. So that was kind of how I finally got there.
I love that story. With the parents in particular, the because I can relate. I can relate. The practicality of certain career fields will allow at least the parents to feel that okay, hey, my child has a safety net. We meaning like the parents
Yeah.
of the old school days, um, have this philosophy. Well, and not me, but just parents, just knowing like my parents and those who came from like the 80s, 70s, 60s, or hey, if it isn't practical, if you can't go to school for it, then don't waste your time. You'll end up homeless. And so it does take a lot of it just takes a lot of belief in yourself to do it because some people will go that route like you went on, Andrea, and just go to school and get that practical job, and that is it. They completely lose their joy that they had growing up, and they lose all sense of direction, and they don't ever get back to it. But they see people, or they have there's moments that happens that allows them to look and say, "Dang, what could have been?" Or there's something in me that connects with that, and they want to get back to it, but reality has sunk in. Maybe they are just so far gone that they're not there. So I really like that story because it's an inspirational one too, through experience, through just pretty much just getting it from the bottom up. And you mentioned your parents as well, with them and how they are. Have you caught yourself as a parent as well with some of the the same beliefs or same parenting styles that your parents had
Oh
onto you?
God. Yeah. You know, so my older daughter, like everybody is always telling me, "Oh my God, she's like so funny. She's so creative. Like
Yeah.
she's telling us all these neat stories and she's so artistic." And I'm like, "Oh no."
Oh, it's happening.
Because it's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, 'cause even if she goes that route and like she's
Mhm.
very talented, it's still like hard. It's very tough. It's not like going and getting a W-2 job, right? Like my income is very up and down. I make a good living at it, but
Mhm.
that is uncommon.
Right.
So, it's like if that's what she wants to do, I'm like, it's setting herself up for struggle. And it's, you don't want to see that for your kids, right?
Hmm.
Even if it is what they love. So it is, it's tough. It's this thing where it's like I want to encourage her and I am going to encourage her, but at the same time, like I know there's that part of me that's always going to worry and be
Yep.
concerned.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with you. I wasn't trying to cut you off or anything. I'm in full
Oh
agreement with
no.
you. Yes, like I think just even as a parent, you are not you, but like the proverbial you is always seemingly paranoid about something with your child. It's, if something happens, if they cough the wrong way, even if there's nothing wrong, you, oh goodness. And so I get it as well. You just want to set them up in a way that you know that, okay, not only did I help raise them in a good manner, but if they leave my home, they'll be okay. And I don't want the idea of my kids or my children or whomever to go out there and end up on the streets where maybe if they took this route they could have. So I definitely get it. But your
Yeah,
work,
I mean, it's hard, right? Like suffering is inherent in being alive. You're
yes,
like, I don't want my kids to suffer at all. So,
no, for sure.
yeah.
For sure. It's like, do you want your children, not you, right? Do you want your children to grow up in a world where they aren't really living, but they could have been had they gone in the route that they really wanted to? Or do you push them in that direction and kind of like bite the bullets on the risk taking that they're taking, knowing that every day is not guaranteed, right? It's kind of
Right. I
like,
mean, the, the thing I'm learning more and more as a parent is that I can really only guide my kids. I cannot
mhm,
make them go in any certain direction.
yeah.
It just does not happen. They're both very stubborn.
Oh goodness, yes, and you're so right about that. I was speaking with a guest 3 months ago. Her name was Gloria, Gloria Loring, and Gloria was telling me like with her children. I'm like asking like, hey, how do you guide Robin and how do you guide your other son like or teach them or whatever? Like, did they want to become like did Robin want to become this global sensation or did he was he pushed? And she said, no, we just guided them. We just guided our children. So it's the same notions, you just guiding our children. But speaking of which, with your stories, right, kind of like the caveat it back to your books is you have a series of books that you work on. And by series, I mean, I know you have a book series out there, the Bone series, but what else do you have, at least up here, that you just I want to get it on paper, but I don't know how to do it right now.
Oh, there's a lot. I think that's the funny thing is that people think that, they come up to you and they're like, "Oh, you're a writer." Like, "Well, I have an idea and you can write it." And like, it's like, no, 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 no. You do not understand. Writers have so many ideas. We have so many ideas. That's not the problem. The
Hmm.
problem is like sitting down and writing it. That's the hard part. The hard part is not the ideas. So, yes, I have a ton of ideas. I mean, I have that one series that's out. I am partially through a second series. So, the first book in that next series is out, and the second one is coming out this fall. I'm working on the third one right now and thinking about like what am I going to write next. Not another series for a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got two trilogies out of me. That's like, it's tough. It's tough to write trilogies.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, for me too, like I enjoy reading widely, so I enjoy writing widely.
Hmm.
So it's not the only thing that I love fantasy, like epic fantasies, like I always say it's like my first love,
Mm,
but it's not the only thing that I enjoy writing. So I'm hoping to spread my wings a little bit more as
yep.
far as that goes, although I will still always write fantasy. So I do have like another idea that I'm developing right now that I need to start putting together into a proposal because my goal is to hand in book three and then hand in my proposal to my publisher.
Good for you. Good for you. Many of the trad published authors that I've met versus the self published ones is in the trad world. There's like, I won't say there's a label on the author, but it does seem that there is a specific label, meaning genre specific. We want you, especially if you're making money, we want this genre out of you. That there's a lot of risk in taking for the author to then decide I want to go and do a completely different genre. What audience and how do you even navigate it? For the self-published authors, it's we do as we will and kind of keep it pushing. But I think both ways are just fine. But like the author themselves, when you have so many ideas, even in just in speaking to you, when we met, but just kind of getting to know a little bit about you, and then talking to you before this recording, and just knowing that you're a writer as a whole, right? Just a creator. I'm sure you have so much in your mind that you want to push out. Would you ever consider down the road rewriting some of your books that you already had out, or would you say, you know what, one and done, time to move on to the next?
Oh gosh, I don't. Not the ones that are out, no. I might consider like cannibalizing ideas from the books that I've trunked, which is a
Mhm.
lot.
Yeah.
It's funny because I do have a friend, LR Lamb, that they had a series that they published when they were debuting,
Mhm.
and their book did not get picked up, and then they resold it later. And then they just recently resold it again, a third
Mhm.
time, to a different publisher. And they are going back right now and revising that entire trilogy, which I'm like,
Wow.
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 It's daunting, but also like what a gift to be able to go back and revisit your old work and update it.
Yeah.
I don't think that I would.
Yeah.
I swear, like I write something and then it's like left my brain entirely afterwards. I do have readers that come up to me sometimes and are like, "Oh, like I really enjoyed this part of your book," or like this thing that you did, or what did you mean by this? And honestly, a lot of the
Mhm.
times I don't even remember that part anymore because I've moved
Yep.
on to another book at that
Hmm.
point, or that's been like years and years ago that I actually wrote it. I do say that being an author is kind of like existing in the past and in the future at the same time because you have like one book that's come out
Yes.
and then you wrote that book like 2 years ago, right? But it's coming out now, and then you have like another book that nobody's seen yet, but you've already written it, right?
Hmm.
And then you got another one that you've just started working on, but nobody's going to see it for another 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of, it's hard to keep track of sometimes.
It's like living, it's like an anomaly. It's just what is real and what isn't. What worlds do I create? But I think a lot of, excuse me, a lot of writers, whether they get on a podcast or they get onto some sort of a show, the direction is always geared towards the writer for their writing. But I definitely think, like even in talking to you, just this idea came to me about a focus shifting from the writer and onto the readers. And so, like for you, how what is that experience like, right? For you to go out there, to go to conferences or to go to festivals or to go and host your own signings at bookstores or wherever you're doing it at, and being able to truly connect with the readers. What is that feeling like for you?
Oh, I love it. Like I genuinely don't feel like a book is complete until somebody
Hmm.
else has read it because everybody is bringing their own thoughts, experiences, their own ideas to your
Hmm.
book. So a lot of the times when you're writing a description, when you're writing about your characters,
Hmm.
you are writing to give an impression. You are not writing to describe it completely because the
Hmm.
reader's going to fill in those gaps.
Hmm.
And when somebody reads it and they get that same understanding of the story that you've been laying down, it's so gratifying. It is the best thing in the world. Like I say
Yeah.
a lot, like this is the best job in the world. It's the worst job in the world in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, but it's the best job in the world.
Hmm.
And it really is. Like it is the best thing in the world to hear from readers who really understood
Yeah.
what you were trying to do with your story.
It's a
It's,
beautiful
yeah,
thing.
some people like will interpret it in different ways, and that is their prerogative.
Yep.
But it's absolutely gratifying to feel like somebody is like on that same wavelength as you and is
Hmm.
understanding what you are trying to do with your book, or it has affected them in some way, or it has helped them in some way. It's amazing for
Oh,
sure.
that's lovely. That is so lovely. And I second that thought, what you're saying. I think what is so rewarding is just the idea that people read your work, even though like you're in a position, right? You're in a position where you've been doing this for a long time professionally. And so pretty much, okay, hey, I have at least an idea based on my experience of knowing that doing it this way, this way, this way is going to get me some results. Though, times have changed and you can never really truly predict things in the way that it used to be, but it's almost like a foregone conclusion based off of metrics and based off of timing that you may get some results back. But do you ever wonder, or do you ever get nervous in the idea of, I wonder if people are going to like this story that I'm writing? I hope that they do.
Yes.
Yeah. How often do you get
Yes.
that?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, constantly, consistently. I have lain awake at 2 a.m. in the morning thinking about this. I do feel like you have to let that go at a certain point a little bit, just because, just as we do not in real life collaborate well with everybody, like you as an author are not going to collaborate well with every reader.
Hmm.
So you have to just write for your ideal reader, I think, and
Hmm.
understand that not everybody is going to connect with your work in the way that you may intend. So, yes, while I worry about this constantly, I do try to keep a level head. And I say try because, it's hard.
For sure.
But I feel like it's definitely, I mean, it's an important part, I think, of being an author is trying to find that balance and to understand that, not everybody's going to enjoy your work. When I feel bad about a review, I go and I look at all the one-star reviews of my favorite books and I think about how wrong they are.
Yeah.
So,
You're wrong.
it's like that. Like yeah, no, exactly, right. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you're not going to appeal universally to everybody. There's just
Right.
nothing like that.
For sure. So I'll ask you two more questions, and then and then I'll have to let you go. But the first one is like making a living, right? I know we spoke about it earlier. Our children or your parents, and then with you. But if you truly want to make a living out of just being a writer, what? Well, that's kind of vague. Being an author, what is it that well, how should I ask this question? When you were an author wanted to make a living out of being an author, should you really go through with that process or should you have a backup plan? In your opinion.
I think it's always good to have a backup plan because, especially in this industry, you are not 100% in control and you never will be. That said, I mean, I did quit my day job as soon as I got my first book deal because it was like more than what I was making at my day
Yeah.
job. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. Um, but at the same time, like I feel like if you this is one of those things where it's a survivorship bias too, right? I'm like, well, I had a backup plan and that worked for me, so that's what I'm going to tell people. But I also know people that just went ahead and saved up money and like quit their
Hmm.
jobs and did not have that kind of backup plan. So, I think it's something that you have to analyze on an individual basis and
Hmm.
weigh your appetite for risk for sure, but to also keep in mind realistically that these things are often outside of your control as far as like what is trending in the market. What are editors looking for? Is there an editor that's going to connect with my book? Is there going to be more than one that's going to connect with my book so I can like get the kind of book deal that allows me to make a living. And even if you do, so, mine was quite a large book deal. It was like a significant book deal, right? So it's over $250,000. Even with that, like my income was very up and down for those first few years. Like, because you get paid when you hand in a book, you get paid when a book gets published. You do not always control this. Like if you have something that's going on in your life and you cannot hand that book in on time, you don't get paid then, right? It's not like a W-2 income. So there's that. And also sometimes like publication dates get pushed back through no fault of your own,
Right.
for maybe something else is happening in the publisher, in their schedule. So in that case, you're also not going to get paid when you first maybe expected it. So you have to be very aware that your income, it's not always like under your control. And you have to be okay with that, and you have to be prepared for those drops and for those really flush times as
For
well.
sure.
Yeah, it's not like it doesn't make you feel very steady
Oh, I
for
bet.
sure. Yeah, I mean, because like you're always kind of waiting for that next contract too, and it's always up in the air whether or not you're going to get it.
Hmm.
So that makes it tough as well.
All right.
But I think like, if you keep that in mind and if you search for other ways that you can make an income, because I think like what happens is when you become a professional writer, like other opportunities will open up for you. You can do things like you can teach writing, there's speaking opportunities, things like that. And you kind of build a portfolio career rather than just like focusing on the one thing. So, for instance, right now I'm writing stories for a whiskey company, and that's supplementing my income. So,
Yeah,
it's you really have to, I think, be flexible
for
for
sure.
sure.
How about location, right? How big, and I know I said two more questions, but this came up as you were talking, location. Like how practical is it to be in a location where the action is happening versus, I don't know, being in a small town somewhere, where the opportunities aren't as lucrative?
You know, a lot of people in publishing right now work remotely anyways. I'm
Mm,
sure if you live in New York City, there's like more opportunities for networking and everything. I live in San Francisco, or south of San Francisco. I would not recommend it as if you wanted to be a full-time author, just because it is extremely expensive. Like if I was not married to somebody with a steady job, I would not be living here,
yeah.
frankly. I would be living somewhere with a lower cost of living where I could still easily travel to places to do events. I know if you are writing for Hollywood, like being in Los Angeles is kind of
Hmm.
key, or at least being close enough to it. But yeah, most of this stuff is done remotely. I know authors who live in like very different places, multiple different countries. So
Hmm.
you can still live somewhere else or even somewhere that's very far away from where you would see most conventions and most events and still have a successful career. That's completely possible.
Hmm.
I would actually recommend living in a place that has a lower cost of living just because of the up and down of author income.
No, for sure. And I think that's well said. And so the last question I'll ask you is advice, right? Advice that, because I saw it in person, I saw how you talked to them, and you gave them such wisdom. So in closing, right, what would be some advice that you would give a writer, specifically an author who is wanting to just get their foot in the door and just write a story?
Oh my gosh, there's so much.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot, but I think the biggest thing is to be persistent
Hmm.
and to, yes, like take that time to grieve, to feel sad about the rejections, because there's nobody out there who just takes that hit and feels
Hmm.
completely okay about it. And I think
Right.
that pretending that you do is probably more harmful to you than helpful, because I think
Hmm.
once you just sit in that feeling for a little bit, it allows you to pick yourself up faster and continue on. But as far as I've seen, like, and all of my friends, we've all been through a lot to get published and to stay published. And it's those people who are persisting and who aren't giving up are the ones that are making it. So I think that that's like the biggest piece of advice I would give, is just to keep persisting and to keep trying and to keep trying to improve. Like, don't continually try the same thing. If you're failing, yes, sometimes it's outside forces, because there are a lot of outside forces when it comes to this kind of thing.
Right.
But you can still look to your own writing. Like, there's still things that you can control. The thing that you can't control is how good of a writer you are. So the thing I always told myself is that I'm going to just keep getting better at writing until it's harder and harder to say no to me.
Yeah. Oh, I love
That's
it.
what I would say. Keep persisting. Make it hard for people to say no to you.
Yes. Make it hard for them to say no to you. It's hard to reject somebody who just won't stop. The consistency of just like some people call it stubborn, some people call it just a grit. I like to think of it as just not being a quitter. Absolutely without denial, refuse to be a person who quit on something that I wanted, and I think to your point, you got me hyped and all inspired over here. That at the end of it all, no matter who it is, no matter what it is and the circumstances, it's important to know two things: is it worth it, and why should you keep going? I guess that's one thing because it kind of coincides, but just knowing that is it truly worth it in the end? And if it is, then you just go for it. So you have been such a wonderful, wonderful guest on the show. And are you cool if I share your website or maybe like a social media handle?
Yeah, of course. I'm terrible at keeping it updated. I like keep saying to myself, "Oh, I'm gonna like hire an assistant. I'm gonna do that," and then like I just haven't done it. But my website is Andrea G Stewart, STEWART.com. And my social media handles are all the same. It's Andrea G Stewart. I'm on Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff. So, and I do talk a lot about writing and how to improve.
Oh, perfect. Yep, and it's awesome to follow you. By the way, just sitting there and listening to some of the things that you do, it's cool. It's cool. So I'm glad we stayed in touch, and I'm glad to know that you're still out there continuing to help people through the time constraints that you have with your project. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the show, Andrea. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Osiris. This has been a great conversation.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. For sure. Hey, well, that's all I got for you all today. Thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune in to today's episode. Andrea Stewart was wonderful. I don't know who's going to follow up on that, but good luck to you. Hey, you all take care, and I'll see you next time.